China's the second biggest economy in the world. It manufactures so much stuff and it takes a lot of the world's resources and iron ore and oil and so forth, but it's a burgeoning, building, big economy. It wasn't until Charlie Munger started to invest more seriously in China, and both he and Warren Buffett, by the way, 50x'd their money on BYD. I've been to China many times and I've been to a lot of the major cities there more than once, and I've seen this growth in China in the last 20 years, and a lot of people just not aware because they're not looking there. I'm Lloyd James Ross, seven-figure investor and entrepreneur, and I've helped thousands of business owners and professionals turn financial stress into success. If you're stuck in old money habits, overwhelmed by investing, or unsure where to start, this is for you. I'll give you the mindset and strategies to take control, grow your wealth, and achieve financial freedom. It's time to make your money work for you. All right, why my personal portfolio is angled towards China. In this episode, I'm going to talk to you about what I believe is interesting in terms of investing in China, but this is not advice. Please don't go out and run it and do anything yourself. I'm just going to share some wisdom with you that I think is what makes China interesting in terms of buying assets in China. Of course, I'm not going to divulge anything because I wouldn't want to influence you in that area, but I would like to share this with you because it's kind of interesting, and you may find it interesting as well because it's very misunderstood, the Chinese economy, and I want to just share some insights with you as to why I think it's fascinating and why we've definitely angled some of our portfolio to that. So it's a fair chunk of the portfolio, actually. It's not a small amount. So very, very bullish on China. And if you follow me on the X platform, I talk about this a lot on the X platform. So if you're on X, come and follow me on there. I think it's at Lloyd James Ross. Like, I post a lot on X, and a lot of people don't know that. And so there you go, and hang out with me there. It's where I divulge a lot of stuff on there as well, in a bit more detail. It's kind of fun. So China's the second biggest economy in the world, and it's fast. It's growing, so they say, and people just don't trust any numbers that come out of China. But it's growing at about 4 to 4.5% in GDP a year, which by all accounts for a country that size, that's a good growth. That's a very strong growth rate. And of course, everybody knows now from the Western media that China's gone through a challenging economic experience since COVID. Its GDP's fallen quite drastically. It used to be around 9 to 11%, which is massive, and it's fallen all the way down to 4%. And China's property market was the cause of a lot of that because it was a massive property bubble. And since then, it's in the last 4 to 5 years, it's come right back since COVID. And they're going through a bit of a renewal in the property growth there at the moment. So it's helping restoke the country, but it's a massive manufacturer. China is responsible for manufacturing most of the world's goods. It has dialed that right in. The US is obviously in a trade war at the minute with them, or in trade negotiations to figure out how they're going to get China to be more of a consumer-led economy rather than a manufacturer-led economy. But it's a huge manufacturer. It manufactures so much stuff, and it takes a lot of the world's resources and iron ore and oil and so forth. But it's a burgeoning, building, big economy. 1.4 billion people live there, and it's got a massive growing middle class. And of course, some of the biggest companies in the world are emerging out of there, which is super interesting. And of course, it's in this position where, almost like the USA was in 2011, it's gone through a big bust in its economy and in its property market, and it's starting to recover. So right now, interest rates in China are about 3%, and they're stoking and inflating the economy. They're pumping stimulus into the economy to get it going again. So it's at this position where it could really find some legs in the next 10 and 20 years and 30 years. And it seems to me like China will become the world's preeminent superpower. If you look at a lot of cities in China, they're far more advanced than any other cities on the planet. There's a lot of self-driving things happening there already. There's brand new infrastructure. They're building the biggest infrastructure projects in the world. They recently just built the biggest dam in the world. They're building bridges that make the Golden Gate Bridge look like a poor cousin. They're really going after it. So like, there are cities in China that hold and harbor more people than the entire country of Australia. And these are very advanced cities. In fact, it was recently put out on multiple apps. A lot of people in the States were realizing that people in China live better than they do. And they're starting to realize that. So they're actually starting to see China's not like a third world country with huts and no internet. It's actually a very advanced civilization. I'd even go far as saying it's now pretty much almost the most advanced civilization on Earth. It's crazy. And I've been to China. I've done business in China. I've been to China many times. I went there for the first time in 2006. That's almost 20 years ago. And I've done business in China a number of times. And I've been to a lot of the major cities there more than once. And I've seen this growth in China in the last 20 years. And it's just incredible what's happened there. And a lot of people just not aware because they're not looking there. And it wasn't until Charlie Munger started to invest more seriously in China, and both he and Warren Buffett, by the way, 50x'd their money on BYD, which is If you don't know what BYD is, it's the car manufacturer there that's absolutely belting Tesla at the moment. It's the preeminent car manufacturer in the world, and it's Chinese-led. It's very difficult to compete with the Chinese because they just work and work. When I went there, I was like, this is incredible. All these guys do is eat and do business. That's it. I was like, they just business, there's hustle. Everyone's doing business, and there's people upon people. It's just incredible. And so the scale of what they're doing there is massive. So they've got this massive scaled market. And to put that in perspective, it's like 3 times the size of the United States in terms of its consumer power and everything. So like, what is interested me about China as a place to invest is I really do think it will become the world's superpower. I really do think the renminbi, which is the digital RMB, could be the thing that replaces the US dollar. You can clearly see that it's actually starting to become the world's superpower. And I actually like the way they do things there. Like, and here's what I mean. Back in the 50s, and like back when Mao used to run China before the revolution there, it was very communist. So like, it was a lot more like North Korea. And, it was very, very, like there was hunger. There was 700 million people died of hunger. There was terrible things. And it was very much communist. Now, what happened was Deng Xiaoping brought in and shifted things in the economy after Mao, and he actually applied capitalism to it. He said, I don't care if the cat's black or white as long as it catches mice, meaning I don't care what we adopt as long as it works. So they started to adopt all these capitalist rules in the economy, and it started to grow. So from the 90s, early 2000s to now, it's grown massively. It's become the world's second biggest country. It's crazy what's happened. So what's over there now is this. You got advanced civilizations. You got the economy pumping stimulus into the economy to grow it. World's biggest manufacturer. You got the biggest growing middle class. You got the most advanced. Effectively, you've got most of the smartest people in the world there working now, and incredible purchasing power. So you've got companies over there, and there's a lot of big investors like David Tepper and Michael Burry, and Li Lu, who was Charlie Munger's protege. And even Charlie and Warren have invested in there before. Warren's had big investments in China and Japan and other places, but I think Charlie Munger really liked China, and he found that there were better deals there than in the United States. And he used to have this saying. He said, the first rule of fishing is to go where the fish are. So for me, I was like, well, that started to help me explore into China. And what I realized was there's great businesses and great companies there that are just incredibly powerful companies that have the ability to scale beyond even some of the companies in America because of the population there. And they're protected from a lot of competition because of how the Chinese market works. And of course, they have a lot going for them. So they've got a lot of cash, they've got great returns, they've got huge customer base, and they're in the beginnings of their growth cycle. So there's very, very effective, or what seem to be super effective companies there, and you can buy them for like prices that are 3 times as cheap as the ones in America, and they're equally as powerful. And so just quickly, if you're ready to take control of your finances but feel stuck on where to start, I have a solution. My book, Money Buys Happiness, simplifies investing and wealth building with practical steps to help you achieve financial peace. Get your copy via the link in the show notes, and let's get your money working for you. Now back to the episode. I think it's the future growth engine of the world. And in fact, if you look at Australia's economy, a lot of the success we've had, I would say almost all of our success is from the growth in China. And so people turn their nose up at China, but the reality is you wouldn't have the wage you have in Australia or the opportunities you have here if China didn't exist, because we're pumping so many resources to China's economy that we've actually become wealthy in ourselves because we're like the resource bowl for China. And it wouldn't surprise me if China was manhandling the current leadership here to kind of like build a strategic position against us over time because they just want our resources. I mean, Tucker Carlson did a really good interview not too long ago on this very topic. You may be able to find it on YouTube. But he talked about, China's really wanting to get hold of Australia. And recently there were some battleships out the front of Australia in the Pacific Ocean, just near New Zealand. You could see them off the coast of Australia. And it was interesting because I'm like, I wonder if China wants to come and grab us. Because whilst they can't force project, they've been building up a presence in the Pacific, and when their Navy is now the biggest in the world. People don't know this. Their Navy is now the biggest in the world. Their drone technology is far superior to any others. And Peter, what's his last name? Hagsworth, the Secretary of Defense in America they've actually created theoretical battles with China, and the US loses. So there's a real strength to the Chinese economy that people don't realize. And I really feel like I'd prefer to be aligned in some, not all of our portfolio, but a lot of our portfolio aligned with that, because I really believe in the growth of that country. How do you compete with people that don't stop working? How do you compete with their ability to manufacture at scale? How do you compete with the fact that the country's leader does care about the people? How do you compete with that? Like, it's incredible. Xi Jinping, who's the president now, I mean, you look at how he operates there. He doesn't let companies get in the way of actually providing for the people. He's a real people guy. And I think he's a marvelous leader. And so I think you got to not let the communist thing get in the way. And for some reason, the mainstream media has painted China as this enemy. That I think in the last 50 to 100 years, China's not invaded any country. Like, they haven't started any wars. They're very peaceful. They're very wily, though. Like, you got to be careful of them. They're hard to do business with, as the US is finding out with their trade negotiations. And they do own a lot of the world's precious minerals. They do. And so they've got a very powerful negotiating position. And I saw that happen with the United States in the trade wars. They didn't take a backward step because the reality is they hold the cards. So when it comes to investing in certain areas, obviously you can't just willy-nilly invest in there. You have to do your own research. You have to understand what you're doing. But following people like David Tepper and Li Lu and these big investors, they are seeing a lot more bang for their buck in companies in China than in other parts of the world. So it doesn't mean that it's going to be great forever, but it seems to be more affordable and getting more company for your dollars than it does in places like the United States or Australia, where the markets are very overvalued. It's just more interesting. It seems to be that's where the fish are. So you got to go fish where the fish are. Now, it begs the question whether China can come out of this slump that it's in. A lot of people are betting against it. But I would say the way they can produce incredible goods and the way that the country's being operated and managed, I think they'll come good. And so I've got one foot in each camp. We got assets in Australia, we've got assets in America, and we've got assets in China. Now, it just gives me confidence if I want to grow wealth to be in the next up-and-coming economy, and with just so much happening over there. If you haven't visited, I'd encourage you to go visit and check it out. And I think the best is yet to come when it comes to China. And the world's changing, and you've got to change with it. So it's just a hedge against Western markets. It's a different valuation model, different companies. And if you kind of know what you're doing there, then there's a chance where you can grow your wealth beyond the market of the US market currently. And I think it's interesting to look at. But of course, don't put all your eggs in one basket and just make sure you know what you're doing, all right? But this is why, because I see all these more subjective things I see that are happening there. I just feel like the country's run better. And that counts for a lot long term for people that want to invest. And they're buying a lot of gold. They're doing a lot of world trade. Very interesting stuff. So hope that gives you some level of insight as to what's actually happening in China. It's worthwhile looking at it. And I think a lot of people are biased towards non-China because they get caught up in this communism rubbish that gets shared in the mainstream media. But jump on X, follow me on there, and you'll see a lot of people are doing some work in China. And I really do think that people like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger invested in there because of that reason. And it's worthwhile having a look at. All right, so hope that makes sense. Share this episode with a friend if you've got value from it. And good luck if you're in China, and I'll see what happens. Well, the proof will be in the pudding, and time will tell what happens in the next 10 and 20 and 30 years. But I think, China will emerge as the preeminent superpower of the world, and be nice to get some of that growth along the journey. All right, so see you in the next episode of the Money Grows on Tree podcast. Thanks for listening to Money Grows on Trees. If you enjoyed the episode, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and subscribe to us on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And if you're serious about building wealth, make sure to check out the links in the show notes and follow me on all social media platforms at Lloyd James Ross for more. See you in the next episode.